I never saw the damage coming that this young couple caused when I welcomed them into my home when they were homeless. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm filling in my cat pajamas today because this topic makes me want to just get in my most comfortable clothing, curl up in a ball, and go back to bed. At one time, I knew a young couple. They are part of my family, so they're not complete strangers. Well, the girl wasn't a complete stranger. The guy was somebody she had met at work. These two young people had been living in the woods. They were unable to find an apartment. And it wasn't the money because they both had jobs. It was the fact that there was a waiting list months out, even years out in my area. Of course, there were some new apartments opening up with no waiting list, but they were $2,500 a month. Working in the restaurant business, they couldn't have afforded $2,500 a month rent. The girl's sister actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, did you know she's pregnant?" At that moment, I could not see myself leaving people in the woods who were about to have a baby delivered in less than a month's time. I quickly moved out of my own bedroom. I have a larger closet. It's actually a loft area that I turned into a closet. So I moved my bed there. I left my TV, the stand for it, and some other furniture in the room for them to use. And I put my bed under the skylights in the closet. And I thought, this isn't too bad. I get to sleep under a skylight. I get to look up at the stars at night. The two moved in with one clothes basket of clothes for the both of them, a broom, a dustpan, and a box of garbage bags. And that's all they owned to their name when I brought them in. There were also two closets off the side of my bedroom, which both were packed with my personal belongings. So I went ahead and opened a storage unit and put all of my things in storage that I knew I wouldn't need in the immediate future. I knew by opening these two little closets for them, they would have extra space for baby stuff. And she was supposed to have a shower in a couple of weeks, and she would need a place to put her belongings from the shower. When I decided to move my stuff out of my closets, I also wanted to go ahead, move my bed over to the other closet where I was going to be staying. I wanted to sweep the floor. I wanted to get everything ready, nice and clean, disinfected, for them to move in so they wouldn't have to worry about anything because they had a new baby coming in. I wanted to make sure that it was prepared for baby first and foremost. I even got new carpeting for the two little closets. I got some nice indoor-outdoor carpeting at like Lowe's or Home Depot to freshen up the floor in those closets. In addition, I had a refrigerator in my basement. I called it the party fridge. Whenever there's a special occasion or if my kids had people over, we would make platters of food. We would keep everything stored in the fridge downstairs. But because these two were moving in, I let them have that fridge for them and told my kids only eat from the fridge in our kitchen. So all of our food went into the fridge in our kitchen so they could have some privacy and have their own place to store their food. And in addition, I gave them a pantry cabinet. It also had my stuff in it. I cleared it all out. I had another closet downstairs that was used as a pantry for us. I didn't go into this thinking they were going to ruin my house, but I don't think anybody does. Anybody that's ever owned a rental or an Airbnb probably has a similar tale. But it's really disappointing when it's somebody you know, when you open your own home to somebody and you live with them for months and the outcome is this. While the girl was pregnant, I noticed some strange habits, but in order to get along with everybody and live together happily, some things you just overlook. they would start cooking very late at night. I would say around 10 o'clock at night. So that was a little bit getting used to. And plus, now I was in a different section of the house in my makeshift closet area. And while being in there, I was directly above the kitchen. So I heard every pot, pan noise, every splatter of oil noise, what have you, I heard it. After a while, I asked them, because I was working 60 to 80 hours a week at this time, and I asked them to please keep the noise down at night, and maybe they should try to cook dinner at like 5 o'clock since they're home every single day here. They don't have, anywhere to go. So try to cook like normal hours so that I can be rested for work. While they said, oh yes, of course, they never did it. It continued 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, cooking their food on the stove in my kitchen. One day they asked me to use my little toaster oven, and I had bought this at a very expensive store and paid way too much money for this thing. It was several $100s, but this thing was fantastic. I could cook a chicken. I could make brownies. I could do a lot in this thing. I could even make a pizza if I wanted to. I had just come home from work. I changed my clothes, and as I was going down the stairwell, the toaster oven was on fire. I raced over there in a panic. First of all, I wanted to make sure everybody was okay and nobody got hurt. But the second thing was, fire was spewing out from beneath it, going up my walls, going up to my cupboards. Thankfully, there was no damage. I have no idea why there wasn't any damage. The granite was not scorched. The cabinets were not burnt. The wall was not melted. It's a miracle. The fire was easily contained and nobody was injured. Nobody was burnt. That's the most important thing here. But now I have to get rid of my toaster oven. I decided it would be best not to get a new one while they lived with me and just simplify things. Pretty soon, I noticed that she used too much cooking oil when she cooked. She did work at a restaurant though, so she explained this is how they do it there. But after a while, about a week or 2 weeks, I noticed all the grease had accumulated on my ceiling and it had ruined the paint on my ceiling in the kitchen. Massive amounts of grease spots all over my kitchen ceiling. I had a splatter screen in my cupboard and I pulled it out and I showed her and said, oh, maybe you don't know about this. Here, just use this whenever you're cooking something greasy. Put the splatter screen over the pan and that will prevent it from going up and ruining my ceiling because now I have to have it painted. She didn't agree to that. She didn't say, oh my goodness, I didn't realize it. Oh, I didn't know that was happening. I'm so sorry. She didn't apologize. This made her annoyed and irritated. And I thought, well, she's going to have a baby. Who isn't annoyed and irritated when they're 9 months pregnant? I figured, you know what, just let it go. Keep quiet about it. And as soon as she has the baby, things will calm down and she won't do things like this anymore. But that was simply not true. She had the baby. She brought the baby home. First time mom. I asked her if I could hold the baby. I was so pleased and thrilled to meet this little newborn. And she told me no. In fact, she didn't want me anywhere near the baby. She didn't want me anywhere near the room that they were using in my house. They shut and locked the door and locked me out. My room has a bathroom off to the side, and I asked them, well, I need access to the bathroom from the closet. Otherwise, I have to go downstairs to the other bathroom that's downstairs. I'm over 50 years old. Anyone over 50 years old knows what I mean. I need a bathroom close by. This here is the door to my loft closet. So if I exit the loft and I walk down a very short hallway at the top of my stairs, you can see the entrance to the bedroom. And what we had agreed on when they moved in was that they would keep the door open like this and I could just walk in. And as you see, my bathroom is right there. So I would never see them in the room. In complete horrifying shock, I started sleeping on the couch downstairs so I could be closer to the bathroom down there. I thought, what in the world? This isn't right, and this isn't right to be treated like that. Pretty soon, they had to go to the doctors with the baby. And they had a little car. I installed a security system on my house with a big camera. You can't miss it. It's right out front. They knew about it. It wasn't a secret. It's a huge round camera and then 2 huge lights, spotlights. So at night when I'm coming home, they light right up. They light up the whole entire yard and driveway. So it's very safe. And it also records everything. I didn't do this because they were here. That's not why I did it. I did it because I wanted to protect my homestead. One day I was sitting at work and I noticed that they were taking off with my food in a tote bag. And I thought that was odd because remember, I said we had a refrigerator for them in the basement. But this food was specific because I bought it at the wholesale club and they did not have a membership to that. So I thought, wow, that's really random. Why would they be taking off with my food? But I had a really busy day. I set it aside to think about it later. And then I got a text. And they asked me if they could return the diapers I bought them. I bought Pampers for their baby shower, which I wasn't invited to, but I bought them a gift. I bought them the Pampers in one of those giant wholesale club boxes. Those are really, really expensive, especially the Pampers brand. And now they want to return it. And I said, why on earth would you want to return a gift like that? I don't understand. They said, oh, the baby's too big. She doesn't fit those diapers. We need the next size up. I thought that was odd, but I haven't had young children in many, many years. I thought, oh, well, darn, I got the wrong size. So I said, well, you know, I bought them at the wholesale club. I'd have to go with you to return them. I don't know whatever happened to the diapers, but they didn't take me up on that offer and it was forgotten about. I did, however, mention the time I saw them walking down my driveway with all my food going to their car, and I wanted to know what that was about. And I didn't get an honest, decent answer from these people as to why they were taking off with my food that was for my kids. Instead, they were upset and accused me of spying on them. I said, no, I'm not spying on you. You know I have a camera on my house. It's not a secret. I'm not hiding that from you. And they said, well, we had a party to go to. This was like a Tuesday at 10 a.m. I said, you had a party to go to at 10 o'clock in the morning with a newborn? And they said that it was the guy's mother's birthday. So they were going over to her house to prepare some hors d'oeuvres. I said, with all of my food? And they said, well, they had no choice because they had no money to buy any food. That left a bad taste in my mouth, but it also angered them. So the air in my home was no longer comfortable and cozy like you would think one would experience in their own home. It was now toxic. It was full of downright anger, hostility, and it was very volatile. I was no longer comfortable in my own home. Also, by sleeping in the closet under the skylight, I developed really bad allergies and had nasal problems, and I'm still getting up in the morning to go to work. So I was heavily medicated with like allergy medication, and I was taking those nasal sprays, things I never had to do prior to them living here. So that was really putting a damper on my schedule and pumping that stuff into my body I didn't want to have to do. One day, I got home from work. I heard something, and it was a bubbling noise. It sounded like somebody boiling water on the stovetop. And I thought, what on earth is that noise? But it was coming from upstairs, and I don't have a stove upstairs. When I got to the doorway to my bedroom, where they were staying, I asked them what that noise was, and they told me they bought a humidifier for the baby. And I just backed away and I said, wait a minute, why did you buy a humidifier for the baby? We live in a very humid area. There's no reason to have a humidifier, first of all. Second of all, I said, okay, wait, I don't know a lot about these things, but I don't remember having that unless my kids were sick or something. That's not something you want to run 24/7. I said, did you talk to a doctor about this, or is this something you just came up with? And they said it was something they just came up with. I said, okay, well, let me look into this a little bit because I don't think that's a good idea. Sure enough, there was this article about humidifiers, and it was talking about how they can get moldy inside and so forth. I showed them this article, and I said, I don't think that's a good idea. And they said, oh, well, we'll wash it out. Thanks for the information. They continue to run the humidifier, though, night and day, 24/7. I don't think they ever turned it off. In addition, one of their relatives sent them a crib. It was a full-size crib, and it would fit in my room. I have a big space for my bedroom here. But the problem is when they put it together, they put it in the corner and just put a bunch of junk in it. They didn't actually use it for the baby. Pepper is photobombing me right now at the moment. What are you doing? Hi, Pepper. Turkey. So, you gonna visit me? The last straw for me was when they told me that they couldn't use the tub. I've had this house for 20 years. I've never had one problem with the tub. I said, what do you mean? It was when I discovered they broke my tub and they soiled my shower. I have a cleaning job and I couldn't tell you what this stuff was in my shower. It was a thick, black, sticky, gunky residue that stuck to my shower base, my shower walls. I don't know if you've ever had to replace hardware like that on your tubs. This is a jacuzzi tub. It cost me a lot of money to repair this because that particular valve was made years ago and it's no longer being made. So I had to get a brand new valve. I had to get a brand new spout, 2 handles, and then the sprayer, and then the handle for the sprayer. And it cost me about $3,000 with the plumber's fees to come in, do all that. Plus, I had to repaint the 2 closets. I had to rip up the brand new carpet that I put in them and put new carpet down because they soiled everything. I also had to paint. And because they left the humidifier running 24/7, it caused black mold, fuzzy black mold, to grow over all my windowsills in my bedroom, the closet windowsills, because I have a window in the closet, and in one of the closets, they stored garbage. Rotten, liquefied garbage. And the wall where the garbage was stored was completely destroyed from all that rot sitting in there for months. I had to go in, I had to reconstruct the closet, paint it. So it was thousands of dollars for all of this. Thankfully, I was able to do some of it myself. I could paint for myself and things like that. But there was one thing I could not do. The ceiling in my bedroom had a terrible, terrible mold growth on it. This was something I had never, ever experienced in my house before. The mold growth was oozing right off of the ceiling sheetrock. I had to hire somebody to come in and look at that and then fix it. It's been a couple of years now since I had to repair my home. I can't tell you the heartbreak to go through something like this. When you know you're trying to do something good for somebody, there's that saying, no good deed, you know the rest. One time, I had a suspicion that they were going into my closet because something went missing. I don't even remember what it was that went missing. I don't really keep valuables here. I don't have anything valuable, just my stuff. I went to the gym one night, and on this particular night, I decided I was not going to lock the door, but I was going to set a trap. Without telling them, I sprinkled baby powder in front of where my door would be shut. So if they entered through the doorway, unless they stepped over the baby powder, they would step in the baby powder, and then I would know for sure that they were doing this. Well, I got a big surprise when I came back from the gym, and there were footprints in the baby powder, and they did belong to the guy. They matched his feet. He always went barefoot in my house. They 100% matched his skinny, long, bony feet. None of my kids or me have feet like that. And I said, "Excuse me, I think we have a problem here." And I showed him the footprints in the powder, and I asked him why he had been in my room. The girl flipped her lid at me, told me how dare I, and what kind of sicko am I for putting baby powder. And I said, "I'm not a sicko. It's called protecting my stuff. You have no business. I have offered you my home. I gave you my bedroom. You locked me out. I can't even use my own bathroom. You've destroyed everything. And now you're mad at me because I set a trap to see if you are the ones coming in my room taking stuff." And with that, they moved out. Thankfully, I didn't have to go through court and evict them. Like you hear these horror stories about people like that. I learned that they did go on. They moved in with somebody else. They did the same exact things that they did to me. And those people too had to ask them to leave. I believe some people will just never change. Some people are just not grateful. I opened my home to them. I opened my house. I opened everything to them. Said, "Hey, you have an opportunity here." There are some people in this world who won't look at an opportunity as a gift and do good with it. They look at an opportunity as something just to take. They don't think anything of ruining a person's house. They don't think anything of destroying something that somebody paid for and worked for their whole life. So my advice is, before you let any stranger in your home, or even somebody you know, like in my case, that you think you're helping, just be aware that not everybody has your interest in heart, and not everybody looks at an opportunity like a gift. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.